We are now more than 5 months into the Biden administration, but the president's campaign commitments on Cuba have yet to materialize. Here's what he told Jim DeFede from our CBS Miami station while campaigning during the 2020 race.
Would you go back to the Obama policy with regard to Cuba where you were elected president?
Yes, I would. In large part, I would go back. I'd still insist they keep the commitments they said they would make when we, in fact, set the policy in place. We began to be open up and get so much more support within the region. And that's what we should be doing now.
But so far, not much has changed since former President Trump broke off the normalizing relations that had begun under the Obama administration. The U.S. had eased travel restrictions and reopened embassies in Washington and Havana. But in the final days of Mr. Trump's term, his administration placed Cuba back on the U.S. state sponsors of terrorism list, alongside North Korea, Iran, and Syria. Last week at the United Nations, the Biden administration voted no on a resolution calling to end the American embargo blocking economic activity with Cuba. Only Israel voted with the U.S. and 184 countries voted against the embargo. Now, this is the same way Trump officials voted after the Obama administration had chosen not to vote in 2016. So I want to bring in Carlos Fernández de Cossío. He's the general director of the United States Division for the Cuban Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Director, welcome. Thank you for joining us. Can you clarify the Biden administration's, thank you so much, clarify the Biden administration's Cuba policy in light of what President Biden said while campaigning? There has been no movement so far to roll back any of the Trump administration's more restrictive measures. Is that coming?
Well, to clarify would be difficult for us from Cuba. I think it would depend on the Department of State in the U.S. or the White House to clarify which is the policy. Now, the fact is that they're taking their time in what they call a revision of the policy. But in practical terms, within the past 5 months, it has been a continuation of the Trump policy, which in practical terms implies damage to the Cuban economy, punishment to the people of Cuba, hardships to our population. One has to take into account that the Trump administration chose COVID-19 to be its ally in its policy of maximum pressure against Cuba. And to this day, that policy continues.
So what steps would you like to see the U.S. take, and what is the Cuban government willing to offer in exchange for better relations?
The list would be long if I were just to mention which are the steps that we would want. But in practical terms, one can remember that during the campaign, the then candidate, Joe Biden, said that he would go back to the Obama policy. And he very specifically mentioned a few areas which, in our opinion, are not enough to put our bilateral relationship in a good footing, but would at least help the people of Cuba and many of the Cubans that live in the United States, like reestablishing migratory and consular services in their embassy in Havana, eliminating the restrictions for remittances through institutional channels, which is something that every country in the world does and should happen between our two countries, to eliminate the limitations to travel between our two countries. Cuba is the only country in the world to where Americans are forbidden to travel. So it is simple things like this, but the list could be very long if we were to say the measures that should be eliminated for us to be in a more reasonable relationship between the two countries. And Cuba is ready to engage in the United States, the same way we were ready to engage in the past. It is not something new. It is a kind of approach we have with the rest of the world. Cuba has bilateral relationship, cooperation with most countries around the world, all of the countries in the hemisphere, for example. The United States is the only one that chooses not to engage with Cuba.
And so is Cuba then willing to free political prisoners and allow for a larger variety of political speech on the island? You know, is the government willing to make those concrete steps?
We are ready to take steps, but the relationship cannot be based on the type of fake news that comes out of the United States, like Cuba is filled with political prisoners that do not exist, or that there's a lot of punishment in this country. If one were to believe that, one would have to believe that, for example, Donald Trump won the elections in November 2020. Fake news is it's become a fact in living, a living fact in politics in the United States. The relationship cannot be based on that. But what we've said to the United States is that we are ready to discuss any issue. Nothing is off the table. We can discuss any issue as we do with the rest of the countries around the world, respecting the sovereignty of each of our countries and being reasonable in the kind of demands that one country can put to the other. Cuba would not think that we can base our relationship with the United States demanding the US government to free prisoners that are in jail for violating laws in the United States. And the US government should not expect that to happen in the case of Cuba.
So how do you feel the embargo has stymied, Cuba's economic growth, and how is it affecting the average Cuban citizen? Some political analysts in the United States have pointed to the embargo as a political tool to appease Cuban American voters, primarily in Florida. Do you see it as something that is actually putting pressure on the Cuban government to enact change? How do you see the embargo?
The embargo, or the economic blockade, as we call it, is by design a tool aimed at generating poverty, hunger, misery, destitution in the people of Cuba as a way to achieve the goal of overthrowing the Cuban government or overthrowing the Cuban Revolution. This goes back to the beginning of the 1960s. Therefore, it's a policy aimed at harming the population of Cuba, each and every Cuban within the country. It is a policy that has failed in its ultimate goal, but it has been successful in generating harm to the population and becoming an obstacle to our development. Now, as you say, it is aimed to appease. Sorry?
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Yes, go ahead. Finish your thought.
You mentioned appeasing politics in southern Florida. It would be a shame that forever U.S. politics or policy towards Cuba, instead of responding to U.S. strategic interest, would be always narrowed down to politics in one state, local politics in one state in the United States. We know it happens. We know it's a matter of life, but we'd hope it wouldn't be that way.
Carlos Fernández de Cossío from Havana, Cuba, representing the Cuban government. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.